Earlier this year, the Thai Parliament hosted a seminar in Bangkok, focusing on fostering sustainable peace and regional security in the context of Myanmar's escalating crisis. This event brought together key stakeholders, including ASEAN parliamentarians, civil society representatives, and international experts, to discuss a unified, rights-based response to Myanmar's turmoil, emphasizing the urgent need for regional coordination and the political isolation of the military junta. Insight Myanmar podcast had the privilege of speaking with several speakers, guests, and attendees of the event, and we've compiled their insights into a series. We hope that these episodes will offer our listeners a closer look at the diverse perspectives and responses shaping the regional and international approach to Myanmar's crisis.
My name is Htoo Khant Paing. People call me Htoo. I was formerly a student union leader, and I've been working on Myanmar since and even before the coup. And now I'm currently working with an education institution which is helping Myanmar students continue their education, especially the higher education and in social sciences. So I've been working with them for 4 months now, and I fled to Germany a couple of months after the coup, and but now I'm back in Thailand to visit friends and families. Yeah.
Well, it's great to talk to you, and it's great to speak to you in person, because this is the third time you've appeared on our podcast. The last 2 times have been remote. We spoke to you soon after the coup, after you had just escaped through the jungle, and then we spoke to you on the very somber occasion just before the military held 4 state executions, murders, really, you can say, of 2 prominent democracy activists. And we definitely encourage listeners to check those interviews out. We'll put those links in the show notes. And I think this is a great chance to talk to you after all these years of, kind of a bookend of, or a midway check-in of when we spoke to you in real time when a lot of things were happening, and now things have slowed down somewhat, but the carnage and the devastation are just as real for those facing it, and the displacement as they've ever been, even as international bodies are trying to get a handle and understanding of it.
True. It is a pleasure to meet you in person and have this interview. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, I'm curious from you as well, because when we spoke before, it was in the middle of, or it was really at the moment that everything was breaking apart and everyone was trying to figure out everything, yourself included. Where are you at now in terms of what you're doing, your advocacy, as well as your analysis of how the conflict has been going?
Right. So what I have been doing for several months by far has less been political than I was doing for over 3 years after the coup. I've just been in a part of an effort to help Myanmar students continue their educations and researchers their careers. So my analysis of what has been going on is that the first impression is that the human cause has been devastating. It has always been devastating, and it is more so both it is getting worse after over time, both extensively and intensively. We're talking about life and wealth and freedom of millions of people, and I don't see an end in sight. It is quite an experience to be here at the parliament, to listen to what the Thai politicians and bureaucrats are thinking, as well as the ASEAN counterparts. The impression is that while it is super understandable that they would prioritize and consider stability as a solution to the Myanmar's problem, and the consensus approach, the 5-point consensus, it is still remarkable to see that it is still very detached from what Myanmar actors on either side are thinking and approaching the problems. The problem is not necessarily, in my opinion, whether they can successfully, how they can successfully implement the 5-point consensus, but the question is whether it is relevant. Not even still, in my opinion, it has not been relevant since day one. And the conflict's gonna be still protracted, and I cannot see either side. It is difficult to use either in Myanmar context because there are so many actors. But I don't. It is very hard to predict an alternative future in the next several years apart from ongoing conflict.
As you say that, I'm thinking you're both an academic and a person, and that statement that you said, it's hard to predict any kind of positive change in where we are in the conflict. That's that could be an academic analysis, but you're also an individual from this nation that is now being torn apart. And I'm just struck as well in how you spoke that there's a mix of the analytical and the commentary of trying to understand what's happening, and then there's also shades of the personal and the individual of this is your country and your society that's like this. So I imagine sometimes it must be hard to hold those two things together.
It is indeed, and it has also been for my peers, friends and colleagues. We are in a really difficult situation that when I wear the hat of a Myanmar citizen or a Myanmar citizen who would like to see a peaceful and prosperous democratic Myanmar, as much as it is very hurtful to take on with the fight, it is unimaginable not being rhetorical, just to give up and see what happens. It is very, very difficult. The situation is like that, and we sometimes we're lost. We have lost a sense of direction, and sometimes the hope is not always clear. But to give up to these military dictatorship, which has been barbaric and most evil, it is unthinkable. Yeah.
Right. Now, you reference how being here, you feel that there's a disconnect between how some of the Burmese people on various sides of the conflict are feeling and expressing, and then how it's being understood by the parliamentarians. And it also should be said that you're in a company of what should be really the best friends of wanting to see peace come to Myanmar, and a proper peace, not a military imposed peace. The Asian parliamentarians of human rights are here, and Thai members of parliament, obviously, that are friends of Myanmar and that are trying to crack down on exploitation and harsh migration laws in their country, and bring about more humanitarian change, try to affect change to ASEAN as well. And so even among this crowd that really is the most supportive I think you could find, you still feel that there's a disconnect between how they're understanding it and how people on both sides are speaking.
Yeah, sure. What I'm saying is not necessarily that they are completely self-interested, and they are ill-intended with the cause of people of Myanmar, but they approach this consensus, and everybody has to sit at the table, and everybody has to come to the dialogue, and I'm not saying that they are trying to normalize the coup and legitimize the junta, but it is, the approach is disconnected, not only to the resistant forces, but even to the junta. It is at this point of time, or since the coup, the dialogue and peaceful resolutions, I don't want to say we have banned the bridges, but it is still unthinkable. Looking at how all the sides have been communicating and signaling and acting on each other.
Now, there have been other guests that we've spoken to today that will be part of this episode that have come on and offered different pathways and strategies for ASEAN needs to do this, Thai government needs to do this, international community that, UN needs to engage this way, and have put forth ideas of a plan that, with a level of confidence that this is the best that we can hope for, and this is what we have to push and try to make happen. As I'm hearing from you, putting together two statements you said, you talked now about how this kind of depression or pessimistic attitude of the thought of trying to facilitate dialogue at this stage in the game, and then going back to what you said originally, noting that you don't really see where this is going or how it's going to be resolved. It just feels like it's just going to keep breaking down. And so, where are you with this? You have a very sharp, astute mind. You've been studying this for many years, even before. Are there things that you that you look towards, or that you would suggest as being more helpful, or is it really just a step back, wait and see, kind of pessimistic feeling that this is really just going to keep breaking down?
Yeah, I mean, the latter is true, but if I don't also want to sound like hopeless and indifferent. There are some things the ASEAN can do, especially I noticed what the MP Wang Cheng from Malaysia has articulated in the scenario of continuing fighting, including disincentivizing fighting and cutting money flows, and reminding that everything is being documented and there'll be a day of reckoning, and standing up against the forced conscription. They are, I think, more realistic approaches that the ASEAN can adopt than that 5-point consensus. And other thing I would say that while we carry on with the fight, we have to do our best to reduce the human cost of Myanmar people that they have been suffering since day one, and I also think that giving up now is absolutely not an option. The resistance needs to review its narrative, to put an adjective, radical narrative, that the Spring Revolution was built on to carry on in a more sustainable way. What I mean is that I have nothing against, in the earlier years, against the radical narratives. It is what fueled the resistance to sustain itself until now. Otherwise, we be gone. But it is now to separate radical from goals from the radical means. I'm all for going for these federal aspirations and not wanting to go back to pre-coup status quo. But we also have to think about people. It would be 5 years next year, and the 5th grader, when a coup happened, if they didn't go to school, now they will be at the age of 10th grader, but with the education of 5th graders. It's heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So And yeah, we need to fight on, carry on the fight. I mean, if we give up now, the junta will make sure that nothing of this sort will never happen again. It is unthinkable. But we still have to think about the people and yeah, and be considerate about them. Yeah.
That's pretty tough. Can't quite reach our destination, but also can't turn back. So we just, if we're taking a swimming metaphor, we just have to kind of keep treading water, even though it's been a long time and maybe those around us have drowned because they can no longer tread. We can't quite reach where we're going, and we certainly can't go back. So we just have to keep treading.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. The junta is bleeding every day, but the entities which can pose the most systematic threats, existential threats to the junta, they are not necessarily democratic or those we can hold accountable. So the political leadership of the resistance should also work harder to come up with a future blueprint, and at the same time thriving for to become more serious actor.
I want to close by asking you a reflective question that is actually based on something you said 4 years ago now. One of the great privileges of doing this podcast is speaking to very informed guests that put together sentences that are so resounding and well put that they just stay in my mind forever, and they shape the way I think about things. I quote them on future podcasts, and I think I could probably I think I can go back to every episode I've done to date and find some little nugget of wisdom that has impacted me in the way I see the world, the way I see Myanmar, the way I see meditation sometimes when we go into those areas. But one of the things that you said that I remember very clearly, because it affected me then, and I've quoted it to many people since, is you said, I feel kind of shitty saying this, but I'm actually kind of happy that the coup happened because it exposed the fake democracy period that we were having in our country. And it revealed that these things were not working, and now everyone can see what the problems were, whereas before I was the only one seeing it. People didn't believe me. Now everyone can see for what it is, and now we can try to do this the right way. Paraphrasing what you said there, because it was one of those early things that really made me think about things and approach in a different way, especially hearing and the words were all the more significant because they were coming from a Burmese insider living through it rather than an outside analyst putting their own take on it. And so I want to bring that phrase to you and have you revisit it and tell us, hearing that now, hearing me paraphrase that today and quote you today with where we're at now, how does that phrase sound to you now?
Yeah, it sounds quite differently now.
Really?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it is. I voted for the NLD in 2015 and 2017, but I was an abstainer in the 2020 election, and I was quite unhappy with the NLD's approach. I felt that they are knowingly going for struggling for democratic consolidations, which is doomed to fail. and you see the human suffering was also real back then under the NLD administrations. Not that they are the direct perpetrators. The Rohingya and the Rakhine community fighting in Shan North. But at times when I read these horrible news that a 500 pounds bomb dropped at a wedding in Anya and so on and on, a concert in Kachin State, and a member of resistance dismembered, and I remember Aung San Suu Kyi's speech that I'm also paraphrasing. We are not a party which would make people suffer, which will let people suffer. When I first heard the phrase before, I thought they're not radical enough. They're shaking hands with the evil devil.
Yeah.
And their administrations also didn't see the 100% peaceful Myanmar. But now, on a human level, when someone dies. And months go on, and 2 months go on, and 3 months go on. So many more people die in horrible ways, in ways where you don't have any dignity. Yeah. Now I remember that phrase by Aung San Suu Kyi. I mean, I can totally understand myself saying that people were very aware that, still are. The system has not been working. Yeah. I mean, I'm safe now. But I know hundreds of thousands of people are dying each month. Yeah, it makes me sorry. Now that I'm feeling a bit under the weather, you have to provoke me with a question.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
My name is Raoul Manuel. You can call me Raoul, and I am a current member of the House of Representatives in the Philippines. I am a member of parliament representing the youth sector.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. You say that you're representing the youth sector as a member of parliament in the Philippines. Tell us a bit more of what that means and what issues that you care about and cover.
Yeah. Primarily, I deliver the voice and the position of young people on pressing matters, not just on youth-specific concerns, but also what the youth stands for when it comes to national or local issues in the Philippines. And since we believe that various issues at the end of the day are all interconnected, that's why we have not been limiting ourselves solely to youth issues in the Philippines. That's why also as a member of the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, I can also see the connection of what we experience, what we feel as young people in the Philippines, to the sentiments also, and the common experiences with those in other countries in Southeast Asia, including Myanmar.
Right. So you reference your involvement with APHR and transnational issues, including Myanmar. Before we get to that, I want to just stay a little bit on the work that you do in Philippines, because you referenced that there are concerns that youth are having that you're trying to highlight and bring to attention. Can you share in some more specifics what those are?
Yeah. We have been pushing for the right of the Filipino youth to education and decent jobs. Just an example, we and the Youth Party in the Philippines were able to successfully lobby for the passage of a law that will stop the collection of tuition and other school fees in state-funded universities and colleges. So this is one of the ways wherein we were able to assert the right of young people to accessible and to quality education. And because that is rooted in not just in the Constitution, but in the fundamental human rights of people, that they must be afforded access to education with no barriers or minimal barriers, if any.
Right. So this is an example of some of the work you've done in the Philippines. You then say that you have looked at not just those concerning and pressing issues in the Philippines, but the wider region, and that's connected you with the work of APHR. So tell us a little more about what APHR is doing and why it was important for you to be involved with this organization's work.
Yeah. I joined APHR when I was in the first months of my term as a member of parliament in the Philippines, because of our strong stance for the various rights of people, and how we have observed the rise of various leaders that exhibit authoritarian or repressive leadership in many countries in Southeast Asia. And as a young parliamentarian, I aspire in the Philippines and in other countries as well, that young people will not live in societies where injustice reigns and ordinary citizens have their rights being trampled upon by those abusive leaders in power. In the Philippines, we have gone through a lot recently under the past administration of Rodrigo Duterte, who has been known in the international community for launching a very bloody war on drugs, along with other anti-people policies. So this really resonates with what the Filipino youth are fighting for: accountability, transparency in government, and the rights especially of oppressed sectors.
Now, it's interesting because on this platform, we've had a number of conversations with people connected to APHR, meaning those progressive, anti-authoritarian members of parliament across the region. We've also had a number of conversations with people loosely affiliated with the Milk Tea Alliance. And I find it very interesting to contrast this. One feels more like bottom up and grassroots, and the other feels like working within the systems at higher levels to create change. And I'd like to hear from you and your thoughts about where you see the work of Asian parliamentarians for human rights engaging, and then how that complements or contrasts the work of those that are in this loose affiliate that's known as Milk Tea Alliance.
Yeah. In the Philippines, we have sectoral parties like myself in the Youth Party that work in various arenas. While we got elected to have a seat in the House of Representatives and be part of the regular sessions, joint debates, committee hearings, we also keep in touch with grassroots organizations, because that's how we try to deal with the lack of numbers inside our parliament, because at the end of the day, whenever the majority decides to, for example, approve a bill that is being imposed by the administration, but if the bill is seen as a threat to fundamental rights, we progressive legislators cannot rely on our minority standing inside the House of Representatives. That's why for us to tip the scales in our favor and really ensure that the voice of people will be heard, we conduct consultations, have joint activities, and also have different learning sessions with these organizations, including farmers, workers, students, women, and other groups, so that we can be one with them as they push for their advocacies, and also their advocacies will reach the halls of parliament.
Right. Now, moving and looking at the transnational nature of the solidarity that you're trying to build and work towards, can you give us an idea of some of the pressing concerns that you see, not just limited to Philippines, but across the region, that you're trying to make progress against, as well as your own hope for what you're standing for with APHR, and what and perhaps any signs of optimism you see in what you're trying to build and create?
One trend that we observe really is the decline in the appreciation for democratic leadership across countries, especially since the pandemic. But it did not just start during the pandemic. People who have long been suffering from policies like anti-labor laws, or those that deprive farmers in the countryside of their rights, or even young people without education. These issues, instead of being addressed head-on by those in government, what abusive leaders do is to treat progressives or the opposition or grassroots organizations as kind of enemies. And in the Philippines, that has been the trend in the past administration, and still abusive state forces have been continuing to do that even while the leadership has changed. So we hear of similar narratives in other countries in Southeast Asia. And aside from that, a very existential threat also would be climate change, with rising sea levels, its impact on livelihoods of people who have long been suffering already. So these are issues that are really close to the heart and the struggles of young people. That's why this has also prompted the youth to assert our voice both inside Parliament and even outside Parliament. I get my hope from young people in the Philippines who have been more active in initiating or joining organizations, banding together, pooling their resources to propose alternatives to the current policies in place, and also to build their muscle on the ground, meaning how they empower each other to not be afraid, and to do all they can to assert for meaningful reforms, may it be at the village level, the city level, or even at the national scale.
That's a powerful message, and I think that's something that really should be resonating even in my country, in America, because we're facing a level of authoritarianism and outside of rule of law that I think many Americans have, in their lifetimes, have never dealt with and don't really know how to respond to. And I think there's a lot of education and inspiration and sharing of strategies that we can get from Southeast Asia and as well as other nations that have unfortunately gone through some level of oppression and have learned how to still resist and how to still be clever in terms of how they're challenging this attempt at tyranny. And towards those ends, I wonder why you mentioned that certainly COVID was one part of this, but it was even before COVID that you did see a trend of rising authoritarianism across the region. And you also mentioned how your causes and your movements in the respective countries is largely a minority. And so I wonder why you think that is, why you think that there has been we could say in the region, although certainly not confined to it, a trend towards strongmen and authoritarians and populism, while at the same time the youth movement that you're trying to harness, even as there could be popular support in some quarters, as you referenced, it still is a minority.
Yeah. What we observe in the case of the Philippines is that past leaders have promised to promote change that people have long been seeking. For example, how to solve the jobs crisis, how to ensure that Filipinos don't feel obligated to seek better opportunities in other countries, how to improve healthcare, transportation, and all that. So even after the fall of the dictatorship, the Marcos Sr. dictatorship in the context of the Philippines, every successive administration has not lived up to its promises. That's why the Duterte administration looked into that as an opportunity to sell his own promises, and also with the use of disinformation, really, to peddle the illusion that he is the strong man that the Filipino people needs. So he was able to make use of those tactics. That's why he was installed into power. Now, the different repressive mechanisms being used by administrations in the Philippines have also led some young people to not really be brave enough to try to voice out their sentiments, even online, because during the pandemic, the administration used fear tactics, or what we call state terror tactics, like using the cyber libel provision in our law to go after people who just want to air out their sentiments in the administration. That's why, some people, even young people, at first they try to seek just the comfortable ways to still engage, like post online but using anonymous accounts. But eventually, even young people whom I meet in schools or in villages, they also get fed up. They see the need to take bolder steps to initiate change. That's why just recently in the election season that we have, more young people are trying to fill in seats and get themselves elected, so that if they can't have the change that they want from the same style of leaders, then they try to fill in that void.
Right. Now, I'd like to move the conversation to talk about Myanmar. And when we're talking about these transnational issues that you're dealing with, I often feel that outside of Myanmar, country by country in Southeast Asia, it's more or less more of this, less of that. When one is comparing the issues that they're dealing with and the progress that they're making, Myanmar is just in a whole other basket after the coup. And so as an Asian parliamentarian for human rights, I'm curious to hear your views of looking at the situation that Myanmar has gone through, not just in the last few years, but really in the last 10 to 15 years.
So we in the Philippines, but because geographically we don't share borders with Myanmar, that's why among ordinary citizens, the issue of what's happening in Myanmar has not really gained much attention. That's why we in Parliament, the progressive voices in Parliament, have also been pushing for more spaces to talk about what's happening in Myanmar. For example, we in the House of Representatives were able to deliver speeches or different points of intervention in support of the advocacy of the oppressed people in Myanmar, and also we try to find what things in Myanmar are actually in common with what's happening in the Philippines, so that it can be more relatable to Filipino citizens. And striking similarities would really be when the military uses its power and its violence against the people whom they are supposed to protect. When they say that they want to target some group, but actually they use all their might, and the excessive use of weapons and even airstrikes to go after communities and thereby affecting civilians. That's one thing that really opens the minds, for example, of our fellow members of parliament who at first were not really aware of the issue.
So you talk about bringing Myanmar issues into a Philippine space for engagement and consideration, and reference how police brutality, military against civilians, and airstrikes, these have been issues that has shown some concern. Can you give us more of a shape of how those conversations have played out and how the sharing of information has gone into Philippine spaces about the Myanmar crisis?
In one committee briefing where the Department of Foreign Affairs of the Philippines, through its top officials, were present, and they are expected to answer questions from members of parliament while they take note of what's happening in Myanmar, but they are contented with the limited approach that they have to deal with the issue. In particular, they refer back to the 5-point consensus, which is a way for the ASEAN as an association to address the issue. But as to its direct role, supposedly, or as a country dealing with Myanmar, the government unfortunately is kind of playing safe. And I think one factor that comes into play is the fact that because the Philippines is not self-sufficient in terms of its rice supply, and it actually imports a large volume of that deficit from Myanmar. That's why the government can't cut ties easily. That's why we progressive parliamentarians are looking into really bumping up the capacity of the Philippines to produce its own rice, because it can, and it will actually solve two problems. First, our problem in terms of rice supply, and also so that we won't enable the economy of Myanmar that is benefiting the military junta.
Now, the ASEAN chair is moving to Malaysia, and then after Malaysia, it's in the Philippines. Last year, it was in Indonesia. There were expectations of hope of what that might mean. I think there was some disappointment. But if this continues to drag out and there's stagnation, looking ahead to Philippines being the host of the ASEAN chair, is that anything that's on your mind, especially as it pertains to Myanmar, and looking ahead at what that might mean?
Not that I'm being pessimistic, but if I'm to be honest about it, the executive branch of the Philippine government remains to be not as true to its words when it comes to upholding the rule of law and defending human rights. There are times when those nice sounding words are being used or invoked whenever convenient by the Philippine government. That's why it's really up to lawmakers like us and also on civil society groups, activist groups to press on the government to take action that is in line with what it is really saying. Because for example, whenever we bring up these kinds of issues, we can say that it's a domestic issue. We don't want to intervene in what's happening in other countries, which is, kind of backing off from our obligations also as a part of a community of countries. Yeah. So far, I just would like to share some words of encouragement to our listeners that sometimes things can really get frustrating or even lead us to, just lose hope. But we have nothing to rely on but our joint efforts really in addressing these issues that at first may just be affecting one group, one sector, one country, but at the end of the day, we're all humans here. And if any person in any part of the globe or in any region is suffering, then you really have to act and not prolong the suffering of those people. Yeah, so that would be all. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Given the importance of the topics we cover, it's my firm commitment and guarantee that our podcast feed will never sit behind any paywall and that all of our episodes will be freely available for all to access. However, just because the episodes are free does not mean that there's no cost associated with producing them. Truth be told, it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge to keep afloat from month to month, and sometimes our limited resources prevent us from taking on the type of content we'd like to pursue. So, if you found today's episode of value and would like to help us to continue to produce more episodes like this one, we would greatly appreciate a contribution. You can offer up a small recurring donation through Patreon or PayPal, or explore other donation options by going to insightmyanmar.org/donation. We also invite you to consider stepping up your level of support by becoming a member. You can learn more by going to insightmyanmar.org/membership. However you contribute, thank you so much for your contribution.
Ora bayara nangkaya unya na dadu ya danan dari ganen zat mana we gara besaya na besaya Oba yara nanda da yara nangana yara na ya da yara na boda ba yara na